It's not about us, and that these horses are capable of doing more things than we give them credit for if we give them a chance to think for themselves.
Hello, and welcome back to another fine episode of Reinforce the Horse. Today we have a very special guest. It's actually a double hitter. We are talking with Patrick and Avery from Gamilah Unbridled. And congratulations to them because they just recently celebrated their wedding. So congratulations, Patrick and Avery. So Patrick Sullivan, at 26 years old, he took his first horsemanship lesson in March of 2015. He didn't grow up around horses, nor was he passionate about them until much later in life. Patrick grew up in Dallas, Texas, but he was not involved with horses and instead had an extreme passion for soccer. And he ultimately became a professional soccer player. He's developed a strong passion for liberty horsemanship and the power it has to transform the horse-human connection. And one of the big things that caught my eye a while back about Patrick is that he rode 2,500 miles from California to Kentucky completely bridleless. So what a feat there. And we get into more of that in our talk. His new wife, Avery Sullivan, at 6 years old, she had her first horseback riding lesson, and after that she was hooked. Growing up, she rode a wide variety of horses and competed in many different disciplines. She discovered liberty horsemanship in 2019, which ignited a passion that she's been following and pouring herself into ever since. So both Patrick and Avery have a wealth of knowledge and just a true innate talent. And I think even more than that, they have a very calm and down-to-earth disposition and energy, and one that you can definitely feel as they talk across the podcast waves. And they also have an extreme love for these magical and angelic beings we call horses.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Reinforce the Horse. Today we are here with Patrick Sullivan. Patrick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to go ahead and share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Patrick Sullivan, and my wife and I, Avery, we started a nonprofit called Gamilah Unbridled, and we help underprivileged kids and rescue horses connect through liberty. And for those who don't know liberty, it gives the horse the freedom to choose to make decisions for themselves and hopefully connect with us and bring the two together.
That sounds awesome. Can you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about how Gamilah Unbridled got started?
Yeah, so Gamilah is actually the name of one of my first horses that I've ever worked with, and she is a 11-year-old Arabian mare, and she was one of the two horses that I rode across country from California to Kentucky, 2,500 miles, completely bridleless, in the name of liberty and giving back to rescue horses, underprivileged kids, and people in need all over the country.
You rode a horse across the country completely bareback and bridleless.
Well, so we started off completely bareback and bridleless. It was always completely bridleless, but we started to put some saddles on some of the days because it started to hurt their backs. So we just tried to be, the best we could to the horses, and it was a fun journey. It took us 6 months, but we met a lot of amazing people along the way, and it's something that I would never do again. But I'm very blessed that we were able to accomplish it and meet just so many wonderful people and horses along the way.
That's amazing. In my earlier days, I used to do a good amount of endurance running, not with horses, but just myself. And so the idea of that's a marathon comes to mind. And so it sounds like it took you a while. Undoubtedly, you had a number of stops along the way and rest and relaxation and stuff like that. But what caused you to want to do that? What sort of message were you trying to portray?
Yeah, I think the biggest message that we were trying to portray is that it's not about us, and that these horses are capable of doing more things than we give them credit for if we give them a chance to think for themselves. I think so many times as people we're just control freaks, and I'm can be the same some days, and we do the same to our horses. Is we just want to control every step they take, every movement they go, instead of giving them the freedom to choose to do things. And what this journey was about was, let's take the most extreme thing that we can think of, go over mountains, go through cities, go through deserts, and let's give the horse the opportunity to do what they want in connection with us without the need to do anything and correct them anyway on their head. And so liberty to us is just a powerful tool, and it was just a way to showcase how the knowledge that we can impart on our horses can change their lives forever.
How was Gamilah's response to this ride?
So Gamilah is a very sassy, opinionated, and really smart horse. And I told her beforehand that we were going, but I don't think she fully understood me. But she took it like a trooper. She didn't take a lame step the entire time. So I had two horses, Gamilah and Hal, who was my sister's horse. And Gammy would, I call it Gamilah Gammy. Gammy would go through the days and do it for me, but you could tell it wasn't her passion. But when I rode Hal, he wanted to keep going. We rode 25 miles some days, and he was like, when can we go some more? So I tried to do my best to make sure that when each of the horses would tell me, okay, I've had enough, whether it was 7 miles in or 25 miles in, they've had enough. And that was the cool thing, is that when you pay attention, your horses always talk to you.
Oh, that's such a great reminder. And you mentioned the word control moments ago. And Alyssa and I, quite a while ago, we came up with this mantra called communication, not control. And we definitely kind of use that in our work with our horses. And it sounds like that's, a lot of how you approach working with yours. Can you expand on that a bit?
Well, I love that saying that you just said. I think that's really beautiful, and that's exactly how we think. Because when someone or something is controlled, they don't really have a want to do certain things. Just think about having a boss that's runs things more on a tight ship and bureaucratic and just my way or the highway. It doesn't make you look forward to going to work every day. Where if you have a leader, and I don't even call them bosses, I want to be the horse's leader and their partner more than anything. If you have a leader that you want to follow, that gives you the choices to make mistakes, gives you the choices to make good decisions, those are the people you want to follow. And those are the horses in the herd that the horses do follow and respect the most. So when we are working with our horses from day one, we give them the choice to connect with us or not, whether they connect with us right away or whether it takes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sessions or a couple months. It doesn't matter, because each horse is different and each timetable is going to be their own. And so when we work or play with these horses, we do our best to say, it's your choice to connect with us or not. If you're not willing, how can I help you find that first step to say, we're here to play with you, we're here to help you, not we're here to force you.
That is beautiful, and I cannot agree more with that. I've definitely found, I have previous experience with the typical natural horsemanship of, you push the horse around, you tell them what to do, they don't respond, you tell them who's boss, essentially. And we had this horse, Mocha, for 2 years before she passed away, and then we got a Mustang, and Willow, she came to us essentially wild and was the catalyst to Dad and I shifting the way we approach them and the way we be with them. And so it's an incredible thing to be able to be like, okay, you can be with me if you'd like to. And there's so many times where I recall going in and asking her to train, and she's like, no, I just kind of want to exist in your space. I don't want to do any work whatsoever. So it's cool to be able to, hear that from other people and experience that too. When did your horsemanship journey begin?
Yeah, so I started horsemanship in 2016, so I guess 8 years ago now. So I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I grew up a city boy, furthest thing away from the country lifestyle and horsemanship in general. But, my life changed about 8 years ago when I quit college. I was coaching college soccer, and I got my MBA, and I wanted to go make get a professional job. And my life changed when I found this beautiful mare named Amy that taught me that horses are really special, and there was something in her eyes and something that in her being that kind of brought me closer to God, brought me closer to the universe, and said, this is what I need to be doing. And I've had a lot of great teachers and a lot of wonderful mentors, and you never do things by yourself, and spent a lot of time with horses since. And Avery and I are very lucky to be able to share the little knowledge that we have with other people, and we try to learn every single day ourselves. Because in the scheme of things, I haven't been doing this my whole life, but I look at people and horses very similar, and their pain is our pain, or their happiness is our happiness, their voice is our voice. So anytime I treat a horse, I say, how can I treat a human the same? And it's worked pretty well for us.
That's really great. And your mention of leadership just resonates with me. It reminded me of a quote, Ralph Waldo Emerson: our chief want is someone who will inspire us to be what we know we could be. To me, that's like true. It's true leadership. And it sounds like that's sort of the style that resonates with you. It's kind of I come from a military background, so the best leaders in the military are the ones that see the potential in their troops rather than trying to, pull rank, so to speak.
That's right. Thank you for your service, by the way. And that's an amazing quote and something that we try to live day to day with as well.
Yes, no, I hear that. When you started with horses, did you view them the same way you do now?
So honestly, I didn't, mainly because I came and I played and coached very high level soccer for a long time, my whole life. So when I started working with horses, it was more about like listening to me and demanding from the horse, but they had no clue what I was demanding of them. And if they did have a clue, they didn't know how to do it. So it probably wasn't for a couple of years until I realized that in order to demand something from someone, they must have to have a couple things. They must first be fully comfortable and relaxed with you and what you're asking. That's the first and foremost thing. They can't be afraid of it. They can't be worried about it. They have to trust you. And number two, they have to fully be capable physically and emotionally to be able to do it. And I was skipping those two big principles when I was asking them to do these pretty hard things at the beginning. And so when it was actually the women in my life, my sister, my mom, and my wife, that remind me all the time that in order for a horse to fully want to be your partner, you have to first show that you care about them. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that changed in my horsemanship training or playing or education, is that it doesn't matter what you know until they know how much you care. And it's just something that's a principle that we try to live by every day. And again, we're human. We make mistakes. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I forget that in a quick moment, and I go home and I don't sleep very well that night, and I try to go back the next day and be better. And if I can continue to do that, then we'll continue to make progress, I think.
This resonates with me so much. You mentioned earlier children, and I guess children and how your business goes into helping them. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, so we have the two parts of our nonprofit. First is the rescue horses, not first, but one is the rescue horses and one is the children. And what we've found, or what I've experienced through even my own life, is that kids are sometimes the most vulnerable people on earth because they are influenced by their parents, by the world around them. How they view life is shaped by the environment in which they're in and how they're educated. And through that environment, sometimes they have to learn how to deal with pain, and they have to deal with being scared and sorrow, and also know how to be loved on the other side. And what we found is that horses, especially rescue horses, understand what it's like to have that pain, to have that fear, to have that emotion deep down where they're scared to live in the world that we live. So if we can educate the horses to empower themselves, to say, we are comfortable in our own skin enough to help a child develop their empowerment so that they're comfortable in their own skin. So our whole goal is to help the horses heal the kids. And we've done that with a lot of different programs throughout the country. And we're starting a youth program here in January ourselves to help extend that. But the whole root of what we do is try to heal these horses so that they can in turn and teach the kids. Because we can teach kids all we want, but I think the horses are the most powerful, not tool, but the most powerful being that can help them because they're not judgmental. They don't have a secondary plan. They don't have someone wanting to be the best horsewoman in the world. They don't care if they win a blue ribbon ever. That doesn't matter to them. What they care is that you are treating them well, and that they are helping themselves heal, so that in turn they will heal themselves, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And it must be so magical to experience these horses who've gone through so much pain and trauma and are essentially just, living but not living. They're really just surviving, to horses that are thriving and enjoying life, and then being able to see them help a child that's in need. I can only imagine how special that must be.
Yeah, and I'll share a quick story just about that exact thing that you said. So a year and a half ago, Avery and I started this Gamilah Unbridled rescue program where we took in the 7 most difficult rescue horses in the country and we transformed them through liberty. They were they were horses that were said that should be put down, that could never be ridden, that had no hope, that couldn't be touched, that couldn't be haltered, that had a bucking problem. We had all different types of horses. And there was one horse named Armani. He came to us out of a rescue in West Virginia, who were doing amazing things. And he came to us, and it took us 3 months and probably a 20 by 20 pin to even put a halter on him. Because I'm not going to rope a horse to put a halter on him. We had to allow us to come up and give us the opportunity to put my arms around him, put the halter over his nose, and it just took the time it took. And we fast forward this a year and a half later today, taking a horse that no one could get near, that wanted to run through the panels and kill himself. They said that there was no hope for him. And today, he is working with a good friend of ours. He's was adopted by a good friend of ours who teaches kids. And he is teaching youth lessons at Bridleless and Liberty to kids. And that, to me, is the power of liberty, is how you can take the most feral of feral horses and turn them into partners that can help educate kids in the way of how you treat horses.
That's amazing. So you mentioned this term liberty, and I've come to find that I don't really know a whole lot about the technical term liberty. Alyssa and I, we've talked amongst ourselves, like we say we do things at liberty, quote unquote. But can you fill us in a bit on what you consider liberty? Because it seems like there's a wide range of beliefs and maybe behind the curtains sort of things that go on in the world of, say, liberty for competition.
Yeah, and that's a big thing there, because the truth of the matter is when you bring competition into things, A lot of times there will be a certain part of the population that is going to revert to techniques that are not best for the horse. And when you think about liberty, in my opinion, it's giving him the freedom to choose, to make decisions, to work with you. So it's just like us. We have freedoms in this great nation that were provided by our wonderful founding fathers, but we still have guidelines within, those freedoms. But we have the most freedoms out of anyone in the world. And when our freedoms are taken advantage of, we speak up. But the problem is a lot of times when horses speak up, they have no choice. They have no outlet. So to me, liberty is not about the competition. It's not about the getting them to do the cool tricks. To me, the most powerful liberty in the world, and I say this all the time, is if you take your horse, you load him up in a trailer, you take him anywhere in this country, you take him anywhere on the planet, and you let him go. Where will they go? Will they choose to be with you, or will they choose to go find safety and comfort somewhere else? Because if you take two horses together that are best friends, and you drop them off anywhere in the world, I guarantee those two horses are going to stay together no matter what. That is connection. That is liberty. So as a human, I want to be that horse's safety. I want to be that horse's partner without the use of fear, without the use of overly correcting them when they're not doing, what I'm asking them to do. Because I would rather them leave to understand that the world can be tough out there. And when they come back, they realize that I'm going to make sure they're taken care of. So that's a long answer to your simple question. But liberty is a powerful tool when it's used properly.
That is absolutely beautiful. I cannot, that resonates with my being so much. I absolutely love that. How do you go about explaining to this horse that may be terrified in the beginning that you want to be her friend?
Mm-hmm. Probably the best way that I do that is the number one is that I have to get them to feel my presence without overpowering them. Meaning, when they make a decision, I cannot bring a negative response or a correction. But when they give me the response that I want, I take everything away. And when I say everything, pressure is all around us. If I step into an arena or a pen with a horse, that's pressure for the horse. So what we try to do here is when we step there and they just give us a little bit of a trot, and for a try for a feral horse is just maybe even turning an eye towards us, then we let them be. We step away for a while and we come back and we ask if they can give it to us again. And pretty soon, they're going to start trying to look at us and turn to us to ask questions and say, when we're together, when we're connected, nothing bad will happen. And we try to really make this a constant theme in our training and the way we play with our horses is that we try to allow that every time that they're in our space, we make it an enjoyable experience. And again, that's impossible because, again, we make mistakes too, but we do our best to make it an enjoyable experience for the horses. And to me, nothing good at all from a horse could be accomplished without the number one rule, and the only rule that really matters is that the horse must be relaxed in the actions that you're asking them to do. Because without the relaxation, nothing else matters. And so that is what we try to provide for them the day one, is to give them relaxation and peace internally all the way down to their core, that they believe that when they're with us, they're safe.
Do you feel like you need to go through a lot of inner work yourself, or have you gone through a lot of inner work yourself prior to being able to present yourself that way for the horse?
Yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful, wonderful question, Jason. And the truth of the matter is, as a kid, I went through a lot of pain and I went through a lot of fear and I went through a lot of struggles. And people are like, how can you relate to horses so well? Well, it's easy because I've lived in their shoes. I've understood what it's like to wake up every morning in fear. I understand how you feel hopeless because you cannot get out of the situation that you're in. And once I connected the two, my childhood to the horses, and then found the rescue horses that were really dealing with that, then I was like, wow, I've been you. I've been in your shoes. Even though you're a horse and I'm a person, I know how you feel. And then when I look at that and say, okay, how would I have wanted to find the comfort every day when I woke up, or for a horse when they see their owner coming out to get them? How do you want to make the horse feel? And when I look at my childhood, um, it all comes back to me, and I think that's where I get that sense of when's too far and when's not, because I can feel it.
I can empathize with that on some levels. And on that note, do you think our fear of being vulnerable or vulnerability makes us to ultimately desire more control?
That's a great question. I think it most definitely can, if you don't realize that exact same thing that you said, because the control makes us feel like we're in more peace and that we're able to make things happen better. But in reality, it just takes us further and further away from any of that.
Yeah, the fear aspect is one thing I feel like I'm still learning, and I, to an extent, maybe all of us are, but it's there's something about being in a pen with a nearly 1,000-pound animal. Some of them are 1,000 pounds or over. And I don't know, being able to sit underneath her and trust that she's not going to hurt me. Trust that she's not going to paw me. She's not going to bite me. And in all reality, she doesn't want to hurt me. I think and I mean, Willow was once wild, and so there was a lot of, I mean, she went through a lot of trauma just mere few years ago as of from Roundup and whatever. So she came to me and she was very scared, and what I got from her is the last thing she wanted to do was hurt me. And so it's just, I don't know, being able to be vulnerable with these beings is fascinating. When you are in with or working around with the rescue horses, is there a common theme of like calm that you see from each horse, or from a lot of different horses that's just, I don't know, similar? Something that tells you that they're ready to start trusting you?
Yeah, well, first, before I forget, Alyssa, I want to tell you that my wife said that it looks like you're doing a lot of wonderful things yourself with your horse. And it's really cool to see someone like you take a horse like Willow and do such great things. So I want to give you kudos before I forgot
Thank you.
about that, because to me, you're the future of horsemanship, and people like you that are willing to listen to the horse and give them a life that unfortunately most horses don't get. So I'll answer your question now, but I just wanted to make sure to share that with you and your listeners, that even though we don't know each other in person, from afar, and what I hear, you're just doing incredible things. And for us, it doesn't matter who does it, as long as someone is and everyone is trying to help the horses the best that we can.
Thank you. That warms my heart.
So to answer your question, I really don't have to do much. The horses will tell me when they're ready, because this is one of our favorite quotes to use, is that the horses read people better than people read people. 5 different people can walk into a space with a horse, and the horse is going to treat those 5 different people completely different, because they can feel it more than what we say, more than what we do, more than any action that we partake in with the horse. Your horses can feel your energy. And I'm sure you're very well of energy and how powerful it is. Well, to us, energy is everything with the horse. Is that when a horse comes out of the womb, out of their mother's stomach, when they get up, they're connected to their mother through energy. Or their mom doesn't throw a halter on them and say, "Giddy on up, let's go run away together." No, their energy tells them, "Let's go, let's relax." The horses are so in tune to how we feel that they want to be with someone, and they're ready to be with someone when that person is ready themselves. And I see it all the time. I go and help a client who has a horse, and I go in there and the horse connects with me very quickly. And the client's like, but I haven't been able to do this in years or months or whatever it may be. And I'm saying it's because of not what you do, it's not what you say, but it's how you feel about it. And most of the times, the person is either frustrated with the horse, they're not asking their horses to connect with them, they're telling them what to do. And so, in order to connect with the horse, we must first be in tune with ourselves. And the more I do this, the more I feel is the better I get at controlling my emotions and my energy, the better I can help the horses and the more education I can provide to them. But I can only go as far as I can help myself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it totally brought me back to a statement that you made earlier that regarding the haltering, that it took the time it took. And I think he said somewhere along the lines of 3 months to halter Armani. We recently had an incident with one of our Mustangs. She was bit on the muzzle by a diamondback rattlesnake. And she's only, at that point, she had only been with us for, what, Alyssa, 4 months or so? And so we hadn't had her very long, and she's still not willing to put on the halter. We're working with her. But our veterinarian, when he came out, and he's a great veterinarian, but we kind of had this, he's like, well, if I was able to put a halter on, I might be able to do something. And there's just such this like conflict in my mind. First of all, her muzzle was swollen. I don't know how you get a halter on anyway, and in a lot of pain. But yeah, for me, it's just I've gone through that phase in my inner being of kind of disconnecting from the chronological timeline of life, really. And I'm just wondering, like, have you had altercations like that or issues like that, like an injury or something that you're stuck kind of between a rock and a hard place where a medical professional might be saying like, oh, if you would have done this quicker, then things might have been able to be treated better?
It happens to us, unfortunately, more often than we'd like, because we deal with some incredibly difficult horses that we have come through our program. And to be honest, if the horse isn't ready, we're not going to force it, because that experience is going to be more traumatic for them than anything else we can do to help them, most likely. And that's the hard thing. And that is where we have to be true to ourselves and say, where is our balance? Where is our threshold? Where is it that we have a got-to situation where I say, I have to save this life of this horse right now, right here, or it's going to die? Or can this horse survive a little bit without that medical attention right now, or is there another way that I can do it? And that's a decision that each person has to make. And for us, if it's not like an instant life-threatening thing where I have to get it done to save this horse's life or they have good chance, I just say we're going to wait a little bit longer till the horse is ready. And the rattlesnake situation is a really hard situation to deal with when a horse, you can't have a halter around their head. But at the end of the day, you don't know that's going to happen beforehand. We try to do things as quick as we can, but on the horse's timetable. I mean, I've had times where I've taken a wild horse, and in one day, 3 sessions, we've had a halter on him. Where then you have a horse like Armani, where it's been 3 months, and I'm working 3 times a day, and I still can't get a halter on him. So that's the thing, is that as people and horses, we're all different. What works for one won't work for the other, won't work for the other. And unfortunately, a lot of times as people, and again, I'm sure I do the same thing as well, we try to just put everything in a box and say, well, this is how we do it, instead of thinking, okay, well, how can we work around that box until eventually maybe some of the stuff will fit inside, and kind of go from there.
I'm so glad you mentioned that way, and thank you for clarifying, because for me, it helps to have somebody like you who has had, a great amount of experience and and dedication, and actually, from what we've seen, your work, on social media and stuff like that. It's also interesting because it kind of brings me back to what you were talking about of the feel. And even with the rattlesnake bite, internally, I felt Grace saying, everything is going to be just fine, and just let me work through it. And are you familiar with Dr. Alicia Main?
I can't say I am.
Okay, so she has like a PhD in like quantum entanglement of some sort. I don't know what the actual degree is called. But she literally connects with horses and other animals, for that matter, across the quantum field, and is able to connect with them and actually like resolve a lot of physical medical ailments. And I know that sounds woo-woo, but we connected with her. She's been one of our guests on the show, and we connected with her about Grace. Didn't tell her about the rattlesnake or anything like that. And she comes back, just saying like she's breathing heavy, but she was, and she's going to be just fine. She says she's working through it. And it's stuff like that I think a lot of times, like in our putting things in a box, like you said, and
Yep.
we have so much potential, human and horse, to think outside of that box if we would just allow it.
Yes, 100%. And when I look at kind of what we do, we are kind of in the middle of a lot of people, not like too far extreme one way or the other. We try to take liberty as a whole and almost stay in the middle to our core. And, we've talked to a lot of people that can almost talk to horses and feel horses in another level. And that's not something that I am capable of doing, but I certainly believe it because I see it all the time. And so when I meet people that know more than me about certain things, I do my best to listen and to educate myself. And so when we help people and educate people, we try to impart that on our students as well and say, look, you're never going to be me, you're never going to be Avery, but you're going to be able to do something that works for you and your horse together. So we will show you some techniques and some skills to use, but at the end of the day, it's going to be your way, because that is how the best relationships form. Our program is not a program that's cut and dry all the time. It's take a little bit from our program, take a little bit from this program, take a little bit from this program, and then make it your own. And if you ever need something, we're here to help you. But it's not us or you or them or them. It's all of us. Like, we refer people to other people all the time because the truth of the matter is none of us know it all. So when you bring up someone like that that's able to communicate with your horses on a deeper level, to me, it's just another tool in your toolbox to help your horse become the best horse that they can be. So to me, that's the cool thing.
That is beautiful. Again, it resonates with me so much. Do you feel like the horses have taught you lessons as you've been training with them?
Every day, every single day. And I'll tell you the most powerful lesson that I got from a horse, and it was early on. So I was riding. Gammy was the first horse I started under saddle 6-7 years ago. 6 months into the horsemanship journey, and about 3 months later, I was out cantering in the snow in the field, and I was like, "You better canter like all these other horses. I see all these horses cantering in the field, and I want you to do it." So we're just cantering around, like, well, not really cantering, like galloping around. I had no control. We were just going to the right over and over and over again. And pretty soon, she had enough. She ran straight to this tree, and boom, smacked me off the tree limb. And here I am laying face down in the snow, punching the ground, yelling at the ground, and saying, "What the heck? This silly horse. This horse is so not smart. What am I doing? And as I am saying all this, my sister walks out completely laughing and just making fun of me so hard. She was like, "You are a fool. You are a fool. You don't treat people like this. You cannot go out and do what you think you can do when you want it to this horse when she's not ready." And she took Gammy, she untacked her, she brought her to the stall, left me out in the snow, trying to pick myself up. And later, she sat me down and she talked to me. And my sister's horsey, but not really that, knowledgeable in terms of all the fundamentals, but she's very smart in terms of being and how to help people and a very genuine person. And she said, "Look, you have to treat horses like you would treat the women in your life that you love." And she used the examples, "Hey, you should bring them flowers." And so as soon as I could, I would go out and bring Gammy flowers. And again, they weren't real flowers, but the principle was there. And again, my sister started laughing at me and saying, "You silly kid, why are you bringing her real flowers? Horses aren't going to eat your flowers." But that mindset that in order to get what we want from our horse, we must first treat them like we're going to take care of them. And we must first take them like we're treating someone on a first date. You're not going to start demanding them to do things on the first date, or there will not be a second. And so if we treat horses that way, and we treat them like the loved ones that we care about most in life, we'll have a better relationship with these horses. So I think that's probably the lesson that stands out most to me at the beginning of my journey that sticks with me today.
And through that, they will become your best friend, huh?
Exactly. And Gammy is exactly that.
That's beautiful. She's a beautiful mare. She looks like such an incredible being. Does she know? Have you talked to her about your Gamilah Unbridled nonprofit and about the impact that she's had?
Yeah, Gammy, even during the trip, I would talk to her every day.
I love that.
Because it was just me. My sister was there for a while. My wife was there for a little bit. And the horses, sometimes in the middle of nowhere. And I would thank her every day. I really would. I would thank her because without her teaching me lessons, there would be no Gamilah Unbridled. There would be no liberty teaching that helped other people and horses. So that I tell her that she's changing the lives of people, not me. She's helping her own kind, not me. I'm just using the message that she continues to embark on me.
That is beautiful, and I bet she's just so happy about it. Somewhere in the collective conscious of horse, I'm sure she knows and understands that it's all like this is her purpose kind of thing. It's beautiful. So there was a social media post, actually a few of them that I saw of Avery, I think, working with, I've seen a couple with you too, working with multiple horses at once with no tack whatsoever. Those videos are absolutely like beautiful to me. I don't understand them, but it's like I literally can't explain them other than magic. How did that idea form in your guys' minds and ultimately become a thing?
Yeah. Well, how about this? I don't know if we can do this, but you think we can tag team? Because I think that's an Avery question. I can hand her these headphones and she can describe that because to me, Avery has so much talent and the videos that you see of her doing are all of her hard work. And I don't want to talk about the credit that she has accomplished because at the end of the day, she's done it. I've shared a little bit about my story, but I think we should kind of give credit where credit's due.
So just a minute ago, I asked Patrick a question about, I saw a few videos of you working with with multiple horses at Liberty, no tack whatsoever. I think in one of them, there's 3, 4, maybe 5 of them working together with you. Where did that idea arise?
Yeah, that's a great question. So probably what you saw is what we kind of refer to now as the girls' team, because they're all mares and they're all rescues. And it kind of started when, so the first project that we did, which I think Patrick spoke a little bit about, was that we brought in, 7 of the toughest rescue horses that we could find in the country. And we spent 4 months working with them and getting them, so that they could have homes with the average adopter. And about half of them, we were able to find homes and adopt out in those 4 months. But then there was a handful of them that just wasn't enough time, that, they'd made so much progress, but they just weren't really ready for the next step, a home with someone that wasn't, more experienced with those horses that have, trauma or a feral or something like that. And so we were already committed to the horses, and we're like, well, we're going to stick with it. We're going to keep them and continue their education until we feel that they're ready for that home. And once we made that decision, we kind of started thinking, okay, well, what can we do then? Because we're going to have them. So like, we're kind of big idea people, or Patrick's the big idea person, I guess. And I'm always along for the ride. And so we came up with this idea of, when you see these Liberty performances, which is where a lot of people are introduced to Liberty, is through, expos and demos and these really cool big events. A lot of the times they're these beautiful, well-bred horses that people have had their whole lives. They selected them specifically because, they're athletic, they're talented, they're well-built, they're colorful, all of those things that we all love about horses. But the average person doesn't necessarily have that. I never had a fancy show horse growing up. I had the horse, from the sale barn that my parents, could afford. And I was super thankful for that, but could never get to that high level. And so we really wanted to show that these rescue horses, not only can they become great partners for the average person, but they can also become really high level performance horses at Liberty. And they can reach all of those things that you see, at these really high levels, these performances, all those big aspirations, they could do it too. And so once we decided we wanted to try and tackle that, we had a few of the horses left. And what it ended up being is we had 2 geldings, and then Patrick and I also had a gelding, and his was a rescue. And so that created the boys team. And so he had the boys team that he was going to try and put together. And then we had 3 mares left in the program. And then one of them was my BLM Mustang that I had when I did the youth Mustang makeover. And so we had 4 girls. So we were like, all right, we're going to have the girls team and the boys team, and we're going to see if we can get them working in a team of 4 in the next, 5 months for the event that we set. So long story short, that's how it all came about and how they have now become a part of our program.
That is beautiful. Those videos are, I literally have no other word for them other than magic.
Oh,
it's incredible. And the way your body moves with these angelic beings is it's absolutely beautiful and magical. It's unreal. How did you do it?
A lot of long days. So I had actually, I've been doing Liberty for a few years. I had played around a little bit with my mentor's team when I had learned, like literally one time, but I had actually never worked a team bigger than 2 horses. And even those 2 horses, it hadn't been that many times. So I was very new to this. Patrick had more experience with the teams. So it was a learning experience for both me and the horses. And luckily, if you go into it with, an open mind and be patient, they're pretty willing to work with you, even if you sometimes have no idea what you're doing. So it really started with the basic, just like, I think a lot of the times we think it's really complicated to get the horses to do these advanced things, but it starts so simple and so fundamental. And really, the first sessions are just, okay, can you just stand next to this other horse and can you take a step forward with me together? And once you can do that, can you take another step forward with me together? Okay, now can you take a step forward with me kind of stepping a little bit to the side so it's starting to be a circle? And we just slowly build on that. And once two horses can work together really well, then we'll kind of put another horse and partner them next to who they'll be next to, partner them as a pair of two. And once they work together, then when you put all three together, they kind of are just like, oh, okay, this works. I get it. And, it's a little bit of a hot mess the first few sessions every time, but then it's kind of amazing. The horses are herd animals and they love to work together. And so even though these are three sassy, opinionated, strong-willed mares, they actually seem to love coming out. They meet me at the gate every time I come out. I'll set them free and they all line up and they're like, okay, yeah, let's go work together. Like it seems to be something that they enjoy doing. So it's just fun for both of us.
And that is gorgeous. So all three of the mares that you work with are rescues?
Yes. So the one that I'm usually riding is the little gray mare named Indigo. And she was from our original project. She was rescued by an amazing organization, the Pegasus Project, when she was found in an abandoned herd of starving horses in Texas. She was a yearling at that time, and they spent a ton of time working with her so she could be haltered, so she could be cared for. They got up to the point of trying to ride her, but every time they would attempt to ride her, she would bolt and buck and not let a rider get on her. And so she's now my main riding one. So it's pretty crazy, that she started from that. And then the one that's usually in the middle, the little tiny sassy one, is Tess. And Tess is a BLM Mustang that I got through the Extreme Mustang Makeover that I did as a youth. So she was a yearling at that time, and I've now had her for quite a while. And then the last one, the big sorrel, Nostalgia, she is actually ex-bucking stock. So she, we don't obviously know much about her history, but it's quite possible that she was at one point traveling the rodeo circuit as a completely feral horse used as a bucking bronc. And so she was then found in a kill lot, and a rescue called the Medicine Horse Project in Nevada, they rescued her from that kill lot. And she actually has a crazy story. She was so feral that she jumped out of her pen and she escaped into the desert for a week. And they were able to corral her back after a week when she came back for water. So all three of them have pretty, incredible stories of where they came from, and they all, in their own ways, are certainly rescues.
Want to just give a shout out. You mentioned the Medicine Horse Project. So Chris Nichols
yes.
was a prior guest of ours and good friend now. And so really good operation she's running out there.
Yeah, they are so awesome. I haven't been able to meet them yet, but have communicated with Chris, and she's just seems like the kindest person and such a good heart.
Man, that is beautiful. And all these stories and synchronicities. Oh man, there's so much. So where are you in your horsemanship journey currently how many horses do you have?
Yeah, so I would say, between Patrick and I, we have 5 that we're working with now that are kind of our main horses. We have the 3 girls that mostly I work with, and then we have 2 geldings. One of them who is a rescue, and that's Patrick's kind of up and coming now that Gamilah had to be retired. And so we have 5 that we're working with, and they're all kind of at different stages. They're all working on different things. We have a lot of goals, and I think eventually would love to have them all in a team. And then we have one little mini as well, so I think eventually it'll be, those horses in a mini. But we do a lot more than just the teams as well. I've been working a lot on kind of teaching, seeing how advanced we can get bridleless. So working on different dressage and reining maneuvers that are, considered more high level, and just really pushing myself and my horse to see how we can learn these new things without actually putting the bridle on. I think a lot of the times people think that you can only take it off once they're trained. And we found that sometimes that's really not the case. And if you're really willing to try and communicate with your horse and not rush it, you can actually teach them a lot of new things without putting more equipment on them.
That is fascinating. I have personally found with my mare Willow that I've gained more connection with her the less tack I've put on her. And she's overall a pretty chill horse. Really has been since we've got her. She was very scared when we first got her, so I couldn't like go up and approach her. But she's never had a saddle on. She's had a halter on her face, but this horse overall loves riding, and she's been the one to ultimately teach me, less tack, less control, the better. Because I didn't start my horsemanship journey like that. I ultimately started under the impression that you can't ride bareback and bridleless, again, unless you have a ton of experience and the horse is very, very calm and good ultimately. And quickly after 2 years, after I lost my first horse, Mocha, Dad and I decided that we didn't want to do horses like that anymore. We didn't want to live like that. And so Willow has been the main catalyst to that. It's just, it's been incredible.
I love that. Yeah, I was same here. I did not start my horsemanship journey with like less is more. So I have a little bit of a different perspective as Patrick, who's, hasn't been in the industry as long and has done so much liberty and bridleless right from the start. For me, it's been like so crazy to see that you're right, that standard is really not right. Like there are horses that even if they're not very trained at all, they will do way more for you if you do less forcing with them.
Definitely. Where did your horsemanship journey ultimately begin?
Yeah, it began pretty typical. I was 6 years old and my mom let me go take a horse riding lesson with my best friend at the time. And that really started it all. And from there, I continued my lessons and then ended up leasing a horse and eventually was able to own a horse. And through all those years, I really tried a little bit of everything. I was in 4-H. I did different shows. I did, trail ride. I did pretty much everything you can think of at a beginner level. I tried when I was younger. And then as I got older and went to college, I had no intention of horses becoming a part of my career. I really just wanted to enjoy them and not have that pressure of having them be my livelihood. And it then kind of turned into, without me even realizing it, this journey just turned into them being a huge part of my career now. And I couldn't imagine any other way. So it very much so grew, not in the way I was anticipating, but I'm so glad that it did.
So could you tell us just a little bit more about what your career is like? Like, what's a day in the life of?
Yes. Yeah. So it kind of depends, but first of all, like the horses aren't actually my full-time career. I actually also work a remote job in insurance. So it's definitely very, very busy. I think eventually it'll be just the horses, but for now, I do that part-time as well. So usually I'm, coming out in the morning and, or vice versa, depending on the weather, because we know the weather is very dependent on what we do with the horses. I'll spend half my day doing different office work, both for our horse businesses, the nonprofit, and then Modern Day Horsemanship, doing the insurance work, and then go outside and I'll try and work most of the horses every 5 days a week, and then sometimes we'll have the additional horses that we have in. We don't really take training horses, but sometimes we'll have a rescue horse that will help out. Sometimes we'll have some sort of situation, so we'll have some additional horses that we might work with, and then we'll also do a lot of clinics and lessons and stuff like that. So sometimes we'll be traveling to clinics and doing days of teaching, or we'll have some lessons in our days, and those are really fun because we love working with people and kind of spreading that and spreading it for the horses and for the people. And it's really a rewarding part of what we do. So yeah, it's very day to day is used to look the same, but now it's quite a variety depending on if we're teaching, if we're just working horses for the day. But it's usually some combination
Nice.
of
And you
that.
guys have a clinic that's coming up here in Arizona next year, right?
Yeah, we do. So we're going to be in Arizona. Actually, it's looking like 2 clinics. We'll be here at the end of January, and then the first weekend in February, we're going to be in Cave Creek for one of them, and then the other one, I can't remember the exact name of the town, but it's only about an hour away. So we're excited, and then we're also planning on going to a sanctuary for a day that our friend has connected us with, and working with some of the horses there at the sanctuary. So we're very excited and would love to see you guys when we're there too, if it works out.
Can I ask, what's your favorite way to reinforce your horses?
Yeah, that is a good question, and it's kind of depends on the horse and on the situation. I feel like we probably say this all the time, but we're very not black and white with our training. Like, if there's anything we've learned from the variety of horses we've worked with, it's that each one is different. So, like, I have one horse that has this spot on her belly, and if you scratch it, oh my gosh, she's like over the moon happy. So for her, when she does something really good, I'll usually stop and give her a good belly scratch, and she's happy as can be. And then there's some horses that we have that just really like kind of just like resting and being there calmly. And so for some of them, once we do something and they do great, it's just like letting all of our energy out, just like sometimes even sitting on the ground and just being like, yep, that was it. I'm going to get off you right now. I'm going to stop right now. And we're just going to like sit here and soak in that and just really let you know that was the right thing. I'm not going to ask anything else from you today. And then occasionally I'll have some that are really food motivated, and I'll use treats sometimes. I know treats are like a hot topic, and we don't use them as like the foundation of what we train, but sometimes we'll use them to create motivation for a horse that already has the foundation, and we're trying to get something extra for them, whether that's like a trick where I want you to give me a little more effort with it, and it's a horse that is like so motivated by getting a cookie, then I'll give them a cookie and kind of use that sprinkled in as well. So very dependent on the horse, but I think overall the biggest thing is just the release of pressure, and whatever their version of release of pressure is, making sure we give that to them, and then if we can make it happier by doing something extra, that as well.
That brought up another question for me. So you mentioned, not using food rewards or so-called positive reinforcement and release of pressure. When I watch your videos, and your writing, I can't see any form of like physical pressure whatsoever. So is it an energetic pressure coming from yourself, your brain, your heart, or is it something else?
Yeah, that's a good question, because pressure and energy is so hard to explain and talk about if you're not familiar with it. And I think often when we hear like, negative reinforcement, pressure, things like that, we think like we get this, bad connotation of something that's like, hurting our horse or something that's making them really uncomfortable. And pressure for me is as little as I can do. So for my horses that already know, what I'm asking of them, my cue can sometimes be me just lifting up the energy in my body. And that means I want you to trot now. And you can't even almost see it from afar, right? But for some of them that are more sensitive, and if we spend a lot of time just always rewarding off of that littlest cue, then a lot of the times we can do things that eventually end up looking like you're just dancing with them, like it's magical, because eventually I would like to do the liberty with all my horses without having, a whip at all. I don't use the whip to, smack them or whip them or anything like that. I use it as an extension of my arm to help guide them, to help it make more clear for them where I want them to go. And when I lift it up, it's helping show my energy is coming up. When I put it down, it's showing, okay, my energy is coming down. And so that whip really helps them when they're learning, connect my energy with, something that's a little more visible for them. But really the end goal is that it is just all about just my energy. And, sometimes that energy can be verbal as well. Sometimes I might, give a cluck, and that means forward. So the energy with the cluck they'll start to understand. So yeah, when you say pressure, you don't really see it. My goal is that my pressure is almost invisible. And that, when I'm riding, my pressure is just my seat, my hips moving a little bit more, or my hips sitting really still, because that means, okay, come back to a stop. And it's just trying to do as little as possible. And we do go up in our pressure, but if we start as little as possible and we only go up if we really have to, very rarely we have to go up to something that is really visible.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah. Are you familiar with Qigong at all?
I'm not, no.
No. Okay. So it's like an ancient Chinese practice of, the way I understand it, is really just kind of energy movement. And I recently watched a documentary. The name's not coming to mind offhand, but these master martial artists can actually, like, just by using it, it almost looks like Star Wars and the Force, just by using the power of, so chi is what they call the life energy, and just by channeling that, they're able to like throw around their opponent. It's pretty amazing. And
wow.
So what I'm getting at is, like, over the few years that we've been working with our horses the way we have, I've really acknowledged that there's so much about, like, our energetic presence that is unseen, and it's felt, but it's felt more at a deeper level than our five main senses can show. It sounds like that's a lot of what you're doing, even if it might use a prop or a tool as an extension of that. Does that resonate with you, or is that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is. We are trying to use that energy, and that actually sounds like a cool documentary. I'll have to try and find it, because it's so hard sometimes to figure out how to explain energy to people, because we see it so much when we work with people. We're like, or even like if Patrick and I work with the same horse, he's a little bit more of a higher energy person. My energy sits a little bit lower in my body. So he might do even less and get something out of a horse, whereas, I have to raise my energy a little bit more to get that same thing. And so, for us, it's a minor change because we're still, practicing our energy every day. But then when we're working with people that really aren't necessarily aware of their energy or how to communicate it to their horse, they might come in there and have a lot at their horse without even realizing it. They're not moving, but they're just still have so much coming out of their body, that the tension or the excitement or whatever it is, that it's so much for their horse that their horse doesn't react to them the same way as they just reacted to us. Or on the other end, we have people come in that, their horses will trot around for us, and then for them, they can't really get them to walk because their energy is so low and they're trying to hold it back so much and, not do too much, that on that other end, their horse is like, oh, I don't really need to do anything. You're low, I'm going to stay low. And so that's a great way to explain it, and definitely resonates to how we try to teach and what we do. That's
great. And that sounds a lot. I'm a lot of times quite low energy because I'm just like really chill and I just like to go out and walk around and hang out with the horses. We've taught them or they've taught us rather, to ask them whether or not they want to ride. And so we could actually just say, hey, can I get on? And most times, like my horse, Cody, will say like, no, thank you. But I respect it every single time. And when he does actually acknowledge and say, yes, it's fine to ride right now, and he, I can mount bareback, no problem. And then I've noticed that movement of energy, and like, actually, like for me, it, like, I kind of focus it outside of my hands and just like up onto his pole and like ask him to move that way. I just like, so it is pressure, quote unquote. Cause he can see it, in his peripheral or whatnot. But it's also that movement of that energy and And so I've stopped asking him with leg pressure at all. And it's really profound because I think he was hurt a lot in his past in that regard before he came to us. Anyways, I just find that all really, really fascinating, and how it really translates and dates back to like ancient indigenous sort of teachings and practices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is cool. I think a lot of what, all of us here are trying to do is really just take it back. And like, because I think back in those times, they didn't have all the tools that we have now to make the animals do certain things. And I think they also had more time to just be there and be present, and getting back to being able to do that, I think does help the horses. And I think it's interesting that you said we always will ask our horses to ride, because when we had our rescue project and we were working with those horses, everything that we taught them, we did at Liberty. So the saddling process was all at Liberty. And by default, we were asking them, okay, are you ready for me to put this saddle on? And the horse Indigo, the little gray mare, it took me so long for her to say, yep, okay, you can put the saddle on. I was working with her with that saddle, getting all frustrated for weeks, because she'd be with me, she'd be connected, she'd do everything, and then I would get that saddle out, and she was like, goodbye. And off she'd go, around the edge of the round pen. And so we spent a lot of time working through, just stand with me, it's all good. Like, this doesn't have to be negative. If you just relax, I'll relax, and the saddling process doesn't have to have what you have associated with it. And, now I can go out in the big arena and, do my Liberty and then tack her up and hop on her and she stands there. But it's very much so, allowing them, there are guidelines, and we need you to put effort in, just like, we are, and learn, but also we'll listen to you. And if you're not ready to ride for 2 weeks, then we'll work on this saddle for 2 weeks, not put a halter on and just make you stand there. We'll work through it until you really are comfortable with it.
Yeah, no, that is just incredible. Like, I love hearing that from other people. And I mean, I haven't been doing this for very long at all. I'm 17. I got Willow just over 2 years ago, and that's really when I started doing what I started doing. Took Mustang Maddie's Horse Human Connection Academy, and Willow and I went through that together. Dad has been, in it with us, with us, and I mean, that's kind of, we're just all about the choice and the connection, and there's so much magic that comes with being able to just exist in their presence, and they're just so happy. This glow in her eyes. And I mean, Willow and Grace, they're two wild Mustangs from the same herd. There's something about being in the presence of the wild horses. I'm sure you can feel with, I mean, your Mustang and the rescues, just given their background.
Yeah, there is. That's so true. They have like a very different, presence, energy about them. Is you can almost tell that life's been hard sometimes, and it creates this wiseness, but also sometimes I think this appreciation that, just like rescue dogs. A lot of people love rescue dogs because once they find they're human, they're so attached. And I think horses don't necessarily act like dogs, but a lot of the times we can just tell once these horses, because it is so hard for them to connect and they have so much baggage and fear that they have, that once they do connect, that it's so much deeper because it was so hard to get there and so hard for them to let go and find comfort with us. And so I agree with you. I think there is a different feeling from these horses versus the domesticated ones that from birth, life's been pretty easy and happy, and people have been pretty easy and happy, and they've been spoiled, and you get your own problems with that. But yeah, I think you're very right.
Well, what a great conversation. We really appreciate you joining us today. And do you have any last words of wisdom for people?
I don't know. I mean, thank you guys so much for having both of us. And I think it's so cool that you're so young and already doing so much for these horses. And, if we get more people like you in the world, it'll be a much better place. So, and thank you also for supporting her. And, there's a lot of people that would love to do what you do, but don't have the support. And so I just think it's great to see both of you and see what you're doing, and anything that we can do to help you, don't hesitate to ask. I'm so looking forward to working with you. I think you're spot on. The biggest thing is just choice and connection. And the more that we can learn how to be better at that and build that, the better it's going to be for people, horses, and really everyone.
Thank you so much. That is, I thank you. I can't wait to meet you and Patrick and just continue this adventure. Hopefully Willow will join us, and if that's the case, Dad will likely be joining us too. So just so excited, and thank you so much again for joining us. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. I cannot tell you how, I've been counting down the days since you scheduled. I've been so excited. So you guys are incredible, absolutely inspiring to me, and yeah, just thank you for all the hard work that you both are doing, and for taking the time out of your day to have this wonderful conversation with us.
Of course. Yeah, happy to be there, and sorry the technical difficulties made it a little delayed, but that's just part of doing this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much, and we'll catch you again on the next episode of Reinforce the Horse.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.